Good morning. This is Cecil in Blues. Thank you for joining me for this Wildstar video. On April 6th, Carbine held a PTR event to focus test Wildstar's new tutorial, which will likely be added to live servers alongside its Steam release. If you are a current Wildstar player or a returning fan, the first thing to know about this new tutorial is that it replaces the previous ArcShip experience entirely. That content and the story it told is no longer a part of Wildstar. As experienced players, we will have to accept that this tutorial isn't for us, and we will need to put those fond memories aside as we judge this new experience. I'll pause for a moment while you furiously downvote this video. This new tutorial is presented as a virtual construct, much like the short novice tutorial added during the free-to-play launch, but this computer simulation is less stark and utilitarian. Instead, it looks like, well, Nexus. Exiles are guided through the process by Dorian Walker, while Dominion characters interact with Artemis Zinn. Most of the dialogue is voiced, and the two scripts are nearly identical. The tutorial is broken into 5 parts. The first focuses on exploration and movement. It teaches some basic movement commands, and then sends you on a short hoverboard race punctuated with new music by Jeff Kurtenacker. It's a pretty and idyllic scene featuring distinctly Nexus landmarks along the horizon. It's quick and simple, with a general message of, "Hey, hoverboards sure are cool, huh?"
Riding that hoverboard's a kick, ain't it? But Nexus ain't all fun and games. Activate the combat projector and I'll introduce you to the enemy.
Once you finish your race, you'll move on to the second area, which focuses on combat. First, you are instructed to reduce 5 generic health bars to 0. They give it some context, but the goal here is to teach new players how to locate the number 1 on their keyboard. After killing 5 rats, the players are instructed to clear out landmines by finding the interactable object and clicking on it. Doing so triggers a telegraph. If you stand in that telegraph, you get blasted and the mine resets. You cannot progress this quest unless you successfully avoid the telegraphs on all 3 mines. Once this is complete, the player will have to attack turrets, which are invulnerable to damage except when they are in their moment of opportunity, which is created by interrupting their cast bar. If you don't use your interrupt correctly, you cannot proceed. These steps teach new players the building blocks of Wildstar's core combat.
Even the most adventurous explorer needs a place to hang her proverbial hat, don't you agree? I'm sure you'll find Protostar's offerings to be quite interesting.
The third area of the tutorial is a visit to Protostar's model home plot, where the player is shown the extent of Wildstar's housing. It's a nice looking plot, and there are some cool animations going on to demonstrate how you can move, rotate, and resize props, as well as customize the music and appearance of your plot. The goal of this stage of the tutorial is to show off the potential of Wildstar's housing, and also to act as a commercial for the Jumpstart Pack, available in the in-game store. I thought this area of the tutorial felt the most out of place and unpolished. Some NPC interactions didn't seem to work correctly, and despite being a fine example of Wildstar housing, it didn't really spark my imagination. Perhaps a 20 to 40 second sizzle reel showing off some amazing player-created housing plots would have really shown the true depth and breadth of what is possible in Wildstar. The fourth area of the tutorial is a short introduction to the Eldin and the concept of Primal Energies. It concludes with a mini-boss fight that felt kind of underwhelming, with a dozen other players in the area. Oddly, members of the opposing faction, too. Aren't we on different ships? In general, I think this whole tutorial would play better as a solo instance instead of a shared zone, but in particular, it's super immersion breaking to encounter the opposing faction in this environment. Once this part of the tutorial is finished, you'll be extracted from your cryopod with a simple cutscene and step into the departures bay of your faction's ArcShip, where you will be able to choose between the 2 starting zones. There are new voiced introductions for each of these zones to assist you with your choice. As a whole, these tutorials do a fine job introducing a new player to Wildstar in a short period of time. I'd say the one place the tutorial fails to deliver is in introducing players to all the major characters in their faction. It would have been nice to have a different member of the main cast narrate each section of the tutorial instead of just having Dorian and Artemis as the representatives throughout. But I understand the cost factors involved in this and the need for sacrifices in production. Mechanically, this tutorial delivers. I was a bit pressed for time, so I forgot to reset my tutorial messages before recording, but I did see a couple of boxes and they looked like another step forward in design from the last time I had seen them. Images were smaller and words were bigger. Unfortunately, there were still no improvements to the level up window UI. That's pretty much all I have to say about this new tutorial. It's acceptable. I'm sure the loss of story is going to be a huge deal for a section of existing players, but all of those story elements and themes are reinforced on Nexus proper, and in some cases, they were never mentioned again. As a final note, let's focus on new content now, Carbine. I have agreed for a long time that making sure new players stayed past the early levels was an issue. But now you need to turn your attention to keeping players active and engaged at max level, and coming back every 4 to 6 weeks for progression and new stories. I wish the community and the development team the best of luck on their Steam launch.
The Orin and Mordish have landed in Everstar Grove, a lush and verdant region of Nexus. Unfortunately, things aren't going quite as planned down there. The forest seems to be pitching a fit, driving the local wildlife to be downright hostile.
With sands the color of blood, Crimson Isle certainly earns its name. The exiles have taken root in the Isle's unforgiving soil and are determined to activate an Elden Annihilator. General Warbringer and Mondo Zax intend to put an end to their plans.